Hey there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me Joni Wheeler, who is the Executive Vice President of Talent and Enterprise Solutions at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Nebraska. She also served as the President and CEO of CoreLink Administrative Services. She serves on many boards and is a part of a UNO Women's Maverick Basketball Mentoring Program and is a strong advocate for mental illness programs for children. Ms. Wheeler follows a servant leadership mantra and believes in fostering a culture in which integrity, authenticity, empowerment, teamwork, collaboration, and fun are modeled as a standard mode of operation. Welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast, Joni.
Thank you. Glad to be
So,
here, Andrea.
okay, did you play basketball? Is that why you're doing this mentoring? But you seem like a basketball player.
I played a little in high school, but I think just, paying forward lessons I've learned and just, helping young women in leadership is just such a passion for me. So when this opportunity came about, I jumped at it.
Hmm, that's cool. Yeah, I've heard you say paying it forward quite a bit, so it's kind of cool to it's neat to see the different things that you're doing to pay it forward. Would you start by sharing with us your role and kind of maybe some of your responsibilities at Blue Cross Blue Shield?
Sure. Currently at Blue Cross, as Andrew said, as you said, I have executive oversight for enterprise solutions and talent. And those two areas, really, talent is HR, and then enterprise solutions is made up of our information technology organization, our strategic platforms, and then our portfolio governance. And I just recently took in vendor management. So lots going on. It's a lot of fun. I have an amazing leadership team. And so I do whatever they need me to do.
Nice. Okay, so how did you get to where you are? Okay, do you mind sharing a little bit of the trajectory of your career?
Oh, sure. Wow. I don't know that thought I thought I'd be an attorney at one time, then I thought I might be a journalist, and I really sort of stumbled into being an IT developer and was sat in the wrong area or in the area of technology folks. I was like an editor and really just sort of scrubbed, documents and whatnot for grammar and things like that. It wasn't super glamorous. But I sat with these technology folks and I would get done with my work fairly quickly. And, a lot of what I did was more kind of administrative as a really entry into, what I thought I wanted to do. But I was watching these folks and I'm like, wow, you guys are working so hard all the time. And I don't really understand what you're saying, but I wonder if I could help because I finished my work. And I just started asking folks next to me if I could help them, support them in any way, and had some really nice folks look at me and say, "Well, you didn't go to technology school, but I am swamped, so I guess I'll give you a little of this JCL or a little of this, COBOL." And they started teaching me little things and I just picked up on it. And I just loved it. I loved solving problems and testing, solutions, and it just became really fun. And one day, the manager walked in and said, "Hey, how would you like to be a developer?" And so I said yes, and that sort of started a trajectory for me. And then I learned that I love to be innovative and love to make things easier. And so I was like part four of the trajectory of how we finished, how we took a requirement from beginning to end and actually delivered the solution. And there were four different types of programming that happened. And one day I said, what if one person did all these different types of programming, and just talked with some peers and went to management and we said we'd pilot it and they gave us a shot, and that's how they worked for many years thereafter. I think is one person kind of took in the requirement and from beginning to end did the analysis, did the code, test, delivery, reporting, all of that. So that was pretty cool. And then along the way, I also discovered I really liked leadership, and also kind of fell into management, applied for a position, and you know, I always like sign up for something and it's way bigger than I imagined, but it's also there's a cool part of that because you get to really explore and you get to make it what it can be. So took on a management role to some really big teams, and it was brand new what we were doing. So again, kind of figured out how to help them be their best and how to deliver for the organization. And it just sort of came natural to me of helping people, you know, reach even past what I say is reach past their perceived potential.
Mm.
Because I think we all set limits on ourselves, and just really try to help people push past that. You know, oh, if that's all the far you think you can go, you know, push a little farther, set limits higher. And that was crazy fun to watch people go from, you know, doing okay, or, you know, kind of getting by, and then just really thriving and going way beyond, you know, roles that they thought they could take on. And that sort of set the trajectory for me in leadership, and you know, streamlining processes and making things better and more efficient, to strategizing on what's possible and what can be. And so I sort of got this reputation of, well, if it's broken, we'll give it to Joni. If we're, you know, leaving money on the table, or if we don't know, you know, it sounds like a good idea but we're not sure where to go with it, we'll kind of give it to her. And those are the types of roles that I got, for probably the next 10 to 12 years. And then heard about an opportunity at CoreLink, that you talked about in my bio, that's located in Fargo, and it's a subsidiary, of it was a joint venture for Blue Cross Nebraska and Blue Cross North Dakota. And they said, hey, we're going to transform this company, or we're going to shut it down, one of the two, because financially it was kind of upside down at the time. And would you like to come along for that ride? So I went along as the head of operations, and saw very quickly that the culture was pretty rough. Leadership and employees didn't really get along, and over the course of 4 years, basically with coworkers that went there with me, transformed the culture. And then about partway in, was told that the company was going to actually close. And we, instead of growing the business, we then had to shut it down. But we had to take 4 years to lay people off, and there were 300 folks, and we created what we called a launch. So instead of a layoff, we called it a
Mm.
launch. And we help people, same mentality, right? Of, I love to help people, you know, reach beyond their perceived potential. It was, we help these folks get to their next thing. So we invested in them in training. Certainly severance was a part of that, but as long as they were with that company, we lifted them up and we launched them, and really helped them grow to what was to come next. And the culture remained very, very positive. People didn't want to leave because they loved it so much. People wanted to
Mm.
come in to the company even when
Even
it
though it
hadn't
was shutting down.
left. Yeah. And so for 4 years, we had to keep people because there's regulations and whatnot that you've got to run on the same system and whatnot. So it's not the traditional, let's lay people off in 6 months, shut it down in a year. You had to keep it going and keep that knowledge there. And so that was cool because, you know, I struggled with that at first, of going and telling all these people that we had just created this amazing culture together, that now they're going to lose their jobs. And so it still wasn't a great message, but we turned it into something that folks could really be passionate about, and leave a legacy, you know, for what was next. So that
Mm.
was amazing, and that just led me to the role that I'm in now,
Mm.
coming into Blue Cross. So
Oh my goodness. So we have to dig into that a little bit though. I mean, that is it's such a unique story, and the fact that you were able to help turn that culture around, and then that people were still drawn to it even though they knew that they would not, it wasn't a long-term job for them. Can you tell us a little bit about what lessons that you learned from that experience? Like, what does, let's talk lessons about buy-in first of all. Like, how do people buy into something that is such a strange proposition?
Yeah, I
Yay, so that we can lay you off.
right. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I mean, when it was first told to me, I came from a company and had been through over 40 layoffs. So I think that's where it just I just went to a place of I can't do this again. I can't go lay 300 people off. And, over the course of a weekend, just really was trying to, what am I going to go tell them next week? And, what's this going to look like? And I just can't do it. Maybe I just bail and go get a different job. And that's not who I am. So, but over the course of the weekend, I was like, okay, you always said when you went through all those layoffs that if you could design this, it would look so different. So
Interesting.
now's your shot, right? And so that's what I did I just started writing, and it sort of turned into this launch idea. And then I gathered the leaders together first thing Monday morning and just said, what do you think about this? And because if they buy in, then chances are they can help, get the employee buy-in. And they loved it. And then we had to get the board of directors on board because this wasn't going to be inexpensive. We were investing dollars into their training. We were investing into growth strategies for how to retain them, and so that was going to cost retention bonuses, and we wanted to give them 6 months notice before their severance even kicked in, things like that. But I think the biggest part was just, that gave them peace of mind that they could still take care of their families and have some notice. But the fact that and then we also went out and talked to companies and marketed them. We became their campaign managers,
Oh, wow.
and talked to a lot of the local companies about, we'll give you 6 month notice when we've got these types of roles coming. And then you can tell us what roles you'll be hiring for. We can kind of match employees to those roles, and they invite them to apply. And so when we laid that all out, I think a lot of people thought it was too good to be true until we really walked that talk. And that just took time, and lots of communication and lots of roundtables and lots of, checking in with them to see how they're doing. And so but it was something that our entire leadership team signed up to do and to lead and to model. And
Mm.
so I think, honestly, I still sometimes say to myself, that really worked. And they did buy in, and they did, come along for that amazing journey. But we still talk about it. It's been shut down, I think 2 years now. So about a year and a half, maybe, but 2 years in September. So yeah, and we still are very connected.
Hmm. So when you were that weekend that you kind of had that shift, um, did you was there anything in particular that inspired you or kind of made that shift for you?
I think it's honestly just that I always think in how do you lift people up? So how do you take a situation that is probably pretty negative, right? I mean, no matter what angle you look at it, at the end of that, they're going to lose their jobs. That's how it's going to play out. So how do you turn that into a positive along the way? I think that's sort of how my thinking transitioned. And then once I started, kind of that drop of water, when the ripple started, right? And it was like, okay, so here's other ways we can make it, cool along the way. And what if we don't ever even use the words layoff? And so we go into this with a whole different mindset of
Mm.
launching, and you could go into a whole new career. What have you always wanted to do? And there were people that
Wow.
ended up, one started like a kitchen remodeling business, and he was a program developer, and another like started a baking little company, and another did coffee. And like there were people that completely changed careers. One went into real estate, and others that learned a new skill, many new skills, and we gave them the opportunity to learn those new skills and practice those.
Mm.
So, but our board of directors was amazing too. They bought in right away. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was weird. It was like from a Thursday night to Sunday. And by Sunday, I was so excited. I could not wait to get everybody together on Monday. It was
Ah,
amazing.
what a gift. I mean, what a gift you gave everybody, and that you got to participate in. That's amazing. Um, what do you take from that experience into your work now?
Yeah, so I think, when I look at that culture and how I mean, we had transformed and we could have so easily had people just walking out and I am not signing up for this. I mean, North Dakota at that time had the lowest unemployment rate, sorry, lowest. So there were, there was a need to hire folks. And I think had we had the news to close of the year prior or like a year and a half prior, we would have lost a lot of people. So I think focusing on your culture is so important. And the
Mm,
thing that I continue to say from that experience is if we can do that and have a culture that is so inviting, is so inclusive, is so connected, and still so productive, there's no reason we can't do that in growing companies. And that became my mission.
mm,
So my mission until I'm sitting retired on a beach somewhere is to help individuals, teams, leaders, um, really, do what they can, lead from where they are to influence better cultures.
mm. You mentioned connection, and human connection has been a theme that I've heard from many, many leaders in the past couple of years. And there's the it's always been a need, but even more so now, it seems. Um, do you have thoughts or best practices to share around how to help people feel connected and actually be connected at work?
Yeah, I think just offering up, environments where they can share that. And so that staying connected was actually a really big focus at Blue Cross this year. It was a theme for us. And we have regular roundtables with leaders, and then we have roundtables with employees. And so, if you're a leader watching this, there's just simple things, even if you lead one team or, an entire organization, just spend some time with your folks and ask them how they stay connected with each other because we're all working from home, or at least in a hybrid environment. And so how do they stay connected with their peers or their teams or just that workplace environment? And they'll tell you, they'll be really honest, and then collect those themes. And what's cool is we had so many ideas. People were doing scavenger hunts online. People were doing escape rooms. People were doing show your puppy day. Like there were all kinds of things, team chats, depending on, the um what the tool that you use for video communication. But it was so cool. And then we shared all those. We shared the themes. We shared where they were struggling staying connected. And so I think just asking people what that's like for them. What's it been like for you the last 6 months? Staying at home or feeling connected, what's not working for you? What would you like to see more of? And we've just continued through the roundtables and some pulse surveys and we've, really encouraged leaders to ask about it in one-on-ones. And so we've really focused on how do you keep your teams inclusive and how do you keep people feeling engaged? And I think, if every company hasn't taken some kind of hit, we probably should be learning from them. I mean, we took a little bit of a dip, but we're paying attention to that and really, tuned into that and asking people, what great looks like. And so I think that is the biggest thing we can do is just really check in
Mm.
with our peers, with our coworkers, with our boss even, but certainly with our teams.
Mm. What other aspects of culture have been difficult to maintain in a hybrid or work from home environment for you? And any thoughts on how to do that?
Yeah, I think, getting keep like when new people join, that's been pretty tough. And I think it's kind of back to that connectedness, but we bring them in and they get their laptops and then they go back home. And so they don't really get to meet people or have that FaceTime and there's something to, meeting with somebody and spending time with them around a table versus a video chat. And so we've really tried to come up with some fun ways to make sure that they feel really engaged. And because, I think we're going to see stats across, the industry go up in, turnover in that 0 to 1 year,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Because they just never got the ability to connect in the way that they would if they were coming in the building every day. So I think that's going to be a big challenge and certainly one that we've continued to focus on. We haven't necessarily, cracked the nut and published a novel or anything, but I do think it's something we're paying close attention to. And the last set of roundtables that we did, when we had folks that said, I've been here a year, so they'd introduce themselves. And then I would say, so you've not been here that long. Can you talk about how you stay connected? What's that look like? Are you happy? Do you have regrets, because you left someplace where everybody knew you? And not one example came back where somebody said, I have regrets, or, they said, I felt so welcome from day one. This is, what that looked like. And they were from different departments. And so I think we're doing some of the right things, but that's because every single leader is engaged and tuned
Mm,
in.
mm,
And then, for individuals, we're telling them this is what we need to hear from you, because it's really important to us that you feel connected and engaged. So I think, those are big ones. Productivity is one that we have not seen a hit on that. But again, we're trying to stay pretty tuned in. We are working on, depending on department, you've got where there's sort of widgets, right? And you can track those through easy metrics. And then there's others where it's more trust, it's more results. So we've put together a scorecard that's really based, kind of 4 pillars, if you will, that really those pillars connected drives the success of our business. And they also help people, stay connected with, oh, okay, I see how I'm contributing to the overall success of the business based on these metrics and these goals. So that's just been the last couple of years and honing
yeah.
those. But I think, really, um, just putting people at the center of the business is what we've tried to do, because without people, you don't have culture, you don't have a business. And
Ah,
so that's really what
absolutely.
yeah, that's
So
how we've
good.
been.
And these scorecards are these individual scorecards so that each individual can kind of know how to measure themselves, or are you measuring teams with those, or the overall business, or everything?
Yeah, so they start kind of in layers, and over the last few years, as we've matured them, they've started with just like the 4 guiding, pillars, and there's a set of metrics under each of those that all the departments roll up to as in terms of kind of our company scorecard and company metrics. But then within departments, there are metrics that they have that then will measure up. So yeah, each department has their own goals, but those goals tie to one of the company goals. So yeah, it's cool because I think, no matter where you are in the organization, you can look at that and say, I'm impacting the bottom line, or I'm impacting the way customers feel, or, so I mean, we still have more work to do there, but I think it's on a really good trajectory. And that will also help us from a productivity standpoint.
Mm. Do you mind sharing the 4 pillars?
Sure, there's so people is one, and that's really how we're doing culturally with talent, turnover, retention, things like that. Customers is another one, customer focus. process, and then financials.
Great. It's a really tangible way for people to be able to see themselves in the midst of everything else that you're doing. I'm curious about your perspective on how leadership has shifted in the past couple of years. Have you noticed a shift? And is there a change in like expectations or a different emphasis on things? Like, what have you seen change?
Yeah, I think leadership has changed, with certainly through COVID and then in a remote environment. And if I look through the lens of Blue Cross, I mean, I've led at global companies, so remote work is not new to me. But at Blue Cross, I think it was like 95% of our folks worked in this 10-story building, and came in every single day. And all of a sudden, in a span of a week, it looked like Best Buy on Black Friday in our lobby, and we're sending everybody home and with laptops, and they're driving up to pick up their laptops, and then they're home, and everybody went home. And so from a leadership perspective, that took adjustment because wow, I used to just walk around and talk to them in their cubes or offices and connect that way and talk about the kids, or point to a picture and say, how's Fido doing? And now I can't. I have to check in with them, and are people turning on cameras, because it's bad hair day, right? So there's that. And now fast forward, 2 years later, and we're hybrid. And most of our folks still chose to work from home. We gave them options, but there's about 25% that are coming in, 3 days a week. So now leaders are saying, okay, I have some people at the table and I have some people on the camera, and how do I help everybody feel inclusive, right? How do I create that inclusive culture and environment? And it's harder. It's a lot harder. And again, and even when in human resources, that focus has shifted to how do we have different tools to give to leaders to, be tuned in with their folks and to have different types of conversations. So I do think leadership's changed. I mean, I think it's in a lot of respects, it's harder. And, where we used to think, okay, I'm a individual contributor, and then my next step is I'm a people leader, and then I go to this director, and pretty soon I'm, an executive, and that's sort of the trajectory. But now I think, people are thinking, wow, there's a whole lot to, this leadership thing, because I have this responsibility to help people feel engaged, or at least I feel that responsibility. I think we all own it, to how we show up and what that looks like. But as a leader, how do I help you, connect differently, engage differently, produce and results differently? And so I think it's tougher being a leader now than it was. And, we've also focused on creating a program we call Spark, that's for people that are even thinking about being a leader. Well, I got to be really tuned into who I am, right, before I start leading others. So what are my values? What's important to me? And that's what a lot of the training does. It really helps them look inside themselves, look at where their strengths are, look at what are my superpowers, what does really speak to me versus just following this trajectory. So, and then I think one other aspect for me through all this, and even back to CoreLink, is I think we think that you have to be a manager of people to lead. And I firmly believe that anyone can lead from where they are. And just if you believe that you can make a difference, if you believe that something can be better, or you can have an impact on something, you know what? You can lead.
Mm.
Believe in yourself, your uniqueness, and you can, it's problem solving, it's relationship building, it's, getting from here to there, in a way that maybe hasn't been thought of before. So, and it just starts with that idea or that drop in the water that creates a ripple. So I think there's a leader in every single one of us.
Yeah, I like to call it a voice of influence.
Yes.
Yeah. Taking initiative like you did when you were first when you saw that you could pull four jobs into one, or like that sort of thing. Like you're taking initiative. People can do that. They can see ways to improve things and speak up and share those ideas and make a difference. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. When you were in our panel, you shared about some wild ideas that you've had over the years. I'm not necessarily going to ask you to share them,
Just a
but it's up
few.
to you. I guess my big question here is you're very out of the box in your thinking. You see around problems. You see through them. You have a lot of creativity, I think, in that. Um, what is it like being the out of box thinker in the room?
Well, I think it's kind of fun, but I think I drive a lot of people crazy. I was actually just in my staff meeting, and yeah, I could camp out in ambiguity and just, thinking big ideas. And if I'm around somebody that's really structured, I will drive them nuts. But I think as long as what I've had to really learn and grow through is it's great to have ideas, but you've got to have a team that can bring those ideas along and turn them into action. And I like to turn things into action too. So that's probably, I can do both. Where I prefer is, really coming up with the ideas and then laying out a roadmap to get from here to there, but bringing people along that, can keep me, um, manage me in the sense that, Joni, you're going way too fast, or did you think about, these 17 things? So I think that, just having the right team makeup and really leaning into where everybody's, again, superpowers or strengths are. That's how I like to go from, those big ideas to, okay, you guys, like, here's a crazy idea. First of all, how crazy is it? Is it something that, you could see, you could vision, and see, a future for? And how could we maybe think about it, taking it from this idea to something that could actually benefit, our business or our customers, or whatever, our community. And I think the one I shared at the talk, when I was with you, was, it was a very crazy idea, but it was about, giving folks in our community access to, um, training and apprenticeships, paid apprenticeships, and then career roles. And that was really crazy. But a year and a half later, we've launched it. We've got participants in it, and we're taking it across Nebraska and other cities starting in January. So, but there's some really amazing people here that said it's crazy, but it's cool. Here's some things to think about. And we just started brainstorming and building that map of how we get from here to there, and it came to life. And I think that, that to me is how the magic happens, is just putting all of those minds together, that creativity, those that are structured, the rule followers, like getting us all at a table and just laying it out, coming together, to build something fantastic. So, that's my favorite part of I guess the creativity, because
Hmm.
that's just a piece of it. There's so much more, but I
Yeah.
love it.
You seem to have a way of not just looking around the problem, but seeing the possibilities, I guess. And I'm wondering if you have any did you have any influences growing up that really kind of pushed you or inspired you or invited you in that direction to really think positively and see the possibilities and the opportunity?
I have a childhood story I'll share with you, and we did not script this at all, but I think there was a point in time that I went from kind of survival to what does it look like to thrive, and lead from where you are, and make that difference, pay it forward, all those things. But I was um, born into foster care. My parents weren't married. One was a student, one was a professor. And I spent almost 7 years in foster care, and then was adopted. And I was adopted by a family that most of them didn't look like me. And there was a lot of racism when I was coming up, and so just kind of dealing with that, dealt with a lot of hunger, and just a lot of situations, probably a lifetime of situations in that first 7 years, which a lot of that molds you and shapes you, and really was in survival mode. I just need to get to my next meal. I just
Mm.
need to get to the next whatever, and you just try to get through a day. And then when I was 11, my adoptive parents put me in a camp in West Virginia, and we were in the commissary line to get food, and I heard the N word behind me. And I had heard this before, and I even to this day, I don't naturally just, if I hear something derogatory, or I don't immediately go, oh, they're talking about me. Like, in fact, I am oblivious until I realize it's, oh, okay, one of these kids is not like the other. So that was the same situation. I realized it because getting louder, and I looked around, I'm like, oh, they are talking about me. And so that was hard. And I made it through dinner somehow and went back. And the way the camp was set up, you were on these high-rise tents, if you will. They're on platforms, and you shared the tent with 3 other people. And so my tent mates came in and said, we just want you to know we don't feel that way, and we want to be your friend. And I said, and I'm crying. I said, okay, thanks. And they left. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I've kind of come up fighting. If somebody called me a name, I just pop them, or push them or something. I was a little bit of a bully. So this event, this camp situation, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, I can't really take all 300 of them. So how about if I just show them what I'm all about? And I don't know where that came from at 11, but that's what I decided to do. And I went out of that tent, and I started with the 3 tent mates, and I just showed them who I was. And by the end of that week, I had a lot of friends, and I was getting picked up, or taken to a train station for my parents to pick me up. So they had to get me up really early, and they took me to the commissary at like 5 a.m. And every camper and every counselor was in that tent, and they all were crying and saying, there to say goodbye. And it was amazing. I that just changed my outlook. I won't say I never got in another fight, but I never punched anybody again. And I just said, that's how you make change. That's how you build relationships. That's how you make an impact, is by showing, your inner
Mm.
colors, if you will. And that sort of became the trajectory for how I coached and how I led. And yeah.
Wow. I'm so glad that you told me that story, or told us that story. I'm really curious. Who was it that you showed them you were? Who was Joni at that time at 11?
I was this like really fun kid, and I was creative, and at that time, I would pick up salamanders and frogs and all that, and snakes. Today, no. But back then, yes. And I was just really fun. I was a tomboy, but I really listened to others, and just, lifted others up. And I think just because I didn't know what that was like, and wanted to, and so I treated others how I would have loved to be treated, and it worked. And it was, yeah, pretty fantastic.
Wow, it's so inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. All right,
Absolutely.
so we're here, we've been talking for quite a while. I'm loving it. Can I ask one more question before I kind of wrap things up? My
Sure.
another question that I had for you is around diversity, inclusion, and belonging. I mean, you've basically been talking about belonging the whole time. I mean, this idea of connection and belonging and all that. I am wondering, this can be handled by companies in so many different ways. I'm wondering if you have any, like maybe one or two just best practices that have really actually turned the needle on DE&I and belonging.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna take credit for this inside of our organization because we have this amazing DEI leader, and she partners with leaders across the organization to really, it's not even just about creating ERGs, employee resource groups, but
Hmm.
it really is about listening to every employee um asking people. I think there's a saying of, bring your whole self to work. We don't necessarily want, like, you don't want me to bring my crabby side to work, trust me, but really inviting people to bring their creative side, to bring their innovative side, to bring their structure side and their idea side, whatever that is, and inviting them at the table by through listening efforts, through creating opportunities that folks might not traditionally get. And we try to be title agnostic, if you will. And if somebody has a great idea, that idea goes. So I think I'm really proud. We just finished our employee engagement survey, and I think there's always things to work on. But the company that we used did a Wordle, and one of the top words that came out that was really positive across our company was inclusivity. That was one of the words that people really feel like this is an inviting, inclusive
Mm.
organization, and that's something we have really focused on. And really, I think creating visibility and transparency around that as well, on what we're doing about it and what it looks like, and again, really listening to what matters most to people. So, I would say we have a road to go. We actually create metrics on percentage of our leadership, and that is, that are people of color, and we have, of course, the gender and the more traditional ones, but we're transparent. We put those out on our website and we share those with our employees, and we talk about where we're going to focus. We share it with our board of directors. We ask them, to be a part of this journey with us. And I think that transparency, communication, connectedness, listening, all those things, they seem really simple, but you got to keep doing them. You got to really build the muscle so that they come, just as a natural part of your culture. And we've been working on that for the last 3 years, but I'm really proud of where we are. We always will look to how can we be better and do better and be better. But when your employees tell you how you're doing, through those surveys, and they're not shy in roundtables either. And and we tell them, this is what you're thinking, this is where we need to get better according to you. And so I think that it's a journey, but if companies are willing to just start that journey, anything is possible, and it will come back to them in, the rewards will come back in spades. I
Mm.
guarantee it.
All right. It's been so lovely talking with you today. And I have one more question for you. My last question for you is, what last piece of advice would you give somebody who would like to have a voice of influence?
Yeah, so my 2 words this year have been start somewhere, and that's what I would tell you. Start somewhere. Start with your boss. If you don't feel, comfortable there, grab a peer. Just go talk to somebody about an idea that you have, or write it down. And then, write it down, start to build it out. And eventually you gotta, share it with somebody, but just start somewhere. Just, don't keep it in your head. Eventually take it out of the drawer, go have a conversation, because you will be very pleasantly surprised, I assure you. It will be a welcomed, it will be received very well and be a welcomed idea. And somebody will probably say, if you brought it to me, I'd say, great, go, get started,
Mm.
and let's chat about it. Take a step or two and then come back and let's chat about it. But yeah, just start somewhere. You'll be glad you did.
Love it. Thank you so much, Joni. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Andrea. This has been so fun.